Good morning, everyone. This is Margaret Wise with ARC, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar. We were originally scheduled to have our ARC CX Summit a little bit earlier this month, and we postponed that, and we are excited to bring the content to you virtually over a series of webinars and virtual workshops. We invite you to visit our website at arc.com, and you can get information and recordings from other webinars and to sign up to participate in our virtual workshops. Today, I would like to thank our other sponsors, and those sponsors are AB Tasty, Full Story, Crown Peak, and FRM, and invite you to visit all of their websites and learn more about them. A special thank you today to our presenting sponsor for our webinar, AB Tasty. A quick introduction of AB Tasty. AB Tasty is the fastest growing provider of AI-powered experimentation and personalization, helping businesses drive more conversions and revenue across all of their digital assets. They provide marketing and product teams with an easy-to-use optimization platform, so they'll help you utilize your website, turn your website visitors into customers and subscribers and leads. And you may have experienced AB Tasty if you have visited websites of Ashley Furniture, Kiehl's, Sephora, USA Today, or one of their other 900 global enterprise customers. So again, please take a look at AB Tasty, and we appreciate their sponsorship of our webinar. Today, I'm excited to introduce Ash from Honey Baked Ham, and Ash has been with Honey Baked Ham for almost 4 years and is Director of E-Commerce Operations, and she's got a deep background in marketing and e-commerce for retailers. So Ash, just want to say hello and do a quick voice check that you can hear us and that you can join us.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. Excited to be here and excited to share these data strategy. And yes, I've been with Honey Baked for a little over that 4-year mark, and I help lead the digital strategy across our online commerce, including the development and the innovation. So thank you for having me.
Perfect. And again, thank you for joining me online today. As we referenced, we had hoped to be having this conversation on stage together. And so thank you for moving to this virtual format with me. First, I want to start out, obviously, the restaurant industry is one of the lead news items right now in terms of everything that has been going on and economic impact. And we're seeing some restaurants that are having to close, and others are pivoting to slightly different models where they're doing things around family meals, more delivery or curbside pickup, and lots of increased communications. And I know, just kicking off here, that our audience would really appreciate us taking a couple of minutes up front to hear your perspective before we start in on our questions around the topic of data-led insights.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. And you're right, it is quite an uncertain time, especially across different industries, including the restaurant and the QSR. For Honey Baked particularly, we always try to do the right thing, and that always is, reaching out to our communities and being there during obviously their best times, which is our holidays and some of their sympathy, but also during these health impacts. And so we were actually quite fortunate that our Honey Baked stores are actually still remaining open. We are actually more of a grocery chain than your normal QSR environment. And so we've added some new precautions into our stores, in addition precautions as well. So for example, we're cleaning every surface from doors to countertops, registers within an hourly basis. We're also offering still carry out. We also just partnered with Uber Eats and DoorDash to do a Easter delivery, because as we know, during these times, it's super important to still maintain that normalcy around your traditions. And so we're still very excited to be able to stay open during these times and offer our products. As you mentioned, doing those delivery meals and kind of being part of that, it still doesn't change. Obviously, when you're still at home, you still have to cook and prepare meals. And so we want to make sure that customers have that option of that pickup without, obviously less friction when you have kids at homes and husbands and wives and, all those conference calls. So this is still a great option, and we are still happy to have that for Easter. So we know it's a tough time, but we still reach out to our franchise, our company-owned stores. We're supporting them across their staffing and ensuring that obviously we're putting our customers first and our associates as well, to make sure that we're maintaining that safe distancing, obviously the social distancing of 6 feet. And so we hope to see you for Easter, but obviously we know that times are tough and there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, but we're there to support anyone in our community. So thank you for giving us that pitch, Margaret. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ash. And very good to know. I know we've had some of our team members already mention ordering their hams, and so a little more pitch for you. But I also want to say to remind our audience that there's a lot of push right now, and in particular around supporting local businesses. And a quick reminder that Honey Baked Ham is a local business to Atlanta, and a reminder that franchises are chain names, but often owned by your neighbors. So keep that in mind as well as you're thinking about your takeout and supporting local businesses. You can hit both of those as you're talking about your upcoming holiday season and thinking about what you're going to do for dinner tonight after you've been working and schooling your kids all day from home. So with that, let's go ahead and get started into the topic of ham, because I know that a lot of companies now are going to be thinking about digital even more than ever, and really interested to hear what other companies are doing. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into our questions. And to start off, I'd like to ask if you'll share a little bit about how you guys, with your overall strategy, think about data. And I know that you've got a couple of different channels that you're responsible for, so I know that is not a simple question, and appreciate you sharing how you think about that from a couple of different ways and channels.
Yes, so obviously we just went through our biggest holiday season, Q4, which includes Thanksgiving and Christmas. We tested a new program called our kind of buy online, pick up in store. We named it prepaid pickup. So if you're familiar with our Honey Baked location, especially during the holidays, we are always slammed out the door with lots of lines, and we've heard a lot of feedback over the last few years of that. Obviously, people are changing the way they shop with us. They want to have their selection online and able to pick it up in store and have that payment already ahead of time. And so it's an easy in and out experience. And so we've listened, and so we were actually really excited to test those in our stores in Atlanta. And with that, we learned so many great insights. So obviously, with the highest peak of our season, we're able to gain more learnings from our customer touches within a shorter time span. So for example, what we noticed, and we've actually implemented some of these for our Easter rollout as well, is that everything from how that online experience, the click to cart, what they buy together, the add-on rate, the average ticket, all of those were increased actually versus our in-store environment. So you kind of think about that online experience. You're shopping in your comfort of your own home. You're able to see the entire product selection. You're not being rushed out the door as normal retail or, kind of that environment is. So people are actually able to see that we not only offer our ham and turkey breast products, that we have a great selection of both side dishes and desserts. And so consumers are seeing that now as a whole meal package. And so when we kind of sat down from learnings, obviously it was a lot of operational tests. We had to make sure our stores were set up properly to kind of take on this new experience. So for example, our normal process is you kind of, as I mentioned, wait in line, you go through that line, you get to the counter, you have a dialogue with that customer associate, that agent, and we talk through like, what are you looking for? What's your meal servings? Would you like to offer this or that? And that creates a lot of just, time in the store. Whereas if you're already in line, you want to get in and get out. And what we saw is that, we obviously show our ham and we have that kind of dialogue. And with our in-store pickup program, it was very quick. Everything's bagged and ready to go. You grab it on the way out. And so there was less people in the store and moving quickly. And so we had a lot of learnings with that. Like, how do we bundle items together? How do we make sure that we actually have the right product offering online? What's the visibility around that website experience? Are we showing certain products higher than others? And so it was a huge learning for us. And to be honest, like, we actually brought in a cross-functional team. We called it Team Transformation. It's a greater, larger, robust team that actually touches a lot of deeper innovational-based products or services and things that we want to offer for Honey Baked. But one of the great things is by creating that kind of team, we were able to give data across all those departments. So for example, with supply chain, if we're seeing a lot of items being purchased online, but necessarily they're not quite in our inventory as much as we see that demand, we were actually able to pivot faster to make sure that those stores have product ready by the time that person came to pick it up. And then we also created new bundles. So for example, we saw certain meals that were being paired together For example, people love our mac and cheese or cinnamon apples. Let's create a one bundle item so a customer can just click one area, purchase that bundle instead of clicking on 3 different things on the site and able to check out faster. So bringing those learnings really helped us understand both the fulfillment, the upsell approach, our supply chain, and even operationally. So we had a survey go out after the purchase where we asked them everything from, did you like the content on the website? How was the user flow? How was the in-store experience? Did you wait in line longer than a few minutes? Did you feel you were out faster? And so we were able to collect all that data from different touch points and really look through it and give us our learning. And so it's always important to not obviously focus on being perfect, always just try to focus on getting something out, testing it with the customer, and allowing them to give what's best. And so that was the easiest way to give data and really make a strategy behind it.
I love that. We are big fans of the test, learn, and iterate, and we talk a lot about that in our language and how you use data successfully. And you started to touch into, right, great segue into next question around tracking and measuring CX. So in some of the things that you started to identify there around looking at that data and surveys as a great data input point, what are some of the other, like, how do you think about what those different data inputs are that you're tracking and measuring? And then you got really good insights, and I know you have a couple of peak periods that you can really take advantage of during the year from seasonality. So a couple of questions, sub questions in this around tracking and measuring. One again is, like, what are some of the different data input points that you have? And then when you have those, what kind of response time are you able to put in place to make that actionable? And, are you able to align that around the seasonality that you experience?
That's a great question, Margaret. And so, obviously we're a legacy company. We've been in business for a little over 60 years, as you mentioned, locally owned, still family owned and operated. And with that, over the last years, we've had challenges as the, digital innovation around data strategy has grown. Our company has had to adapt. And so in the last few years, we've really put in kind of a benchmark, even scorecards, and how different experiences, what historically have we looked at, where are we tracking, and then what is that forecast? And I hear from a lot of companies that we don't even forecast traffic, we don't forecast conversion rate. And so that's such a big piece, especially for a company that supports an e-commerce or online commerce, to know, how many orders am I going to get in a certain hour? How many products do I need to have prepared? And so we actually look through all these different touch points and create a kind of a tracking measurement guide to say, for online, if we know we're going to have these marketing tactics, how much traffic can we get to actually go to that experience? And then from there, how do we feel comfortable on that conversion rate? And so we looked at different benchmarks on obviously the food delivery, the commerce of just, gourmet online, and really created this kind of scorecard to really see if we were on par or higher than average, below average. And then from there, that helped us kind of piece together that kind of operational training book. So with our prepaid pickup, one of our biggest things was, how many orders in an hour you think customers are going to place, and what are the caps? How many actually can our stores take within that hour? So it really helped us understand the dialogue by looking at data first and then backtracking it into a real-time scenario where we had to make changes in our operational side. So for example, could we actually pack 100 orders in an hour? Probably not. So we had to kind of scale back and go, how do we know this is going to be our demand, and how do we build against that? So one of the things that we looked at kind of our in-store, average ticket size, how many items in an order. We looked at how many orders actually transact during those time frames last year in those hours. And then we actually looked at, which was really interesting to me, is that, across those stores, it varied. So we actually went to market building a flexible system to ensure that each store was able to scale when needed or put caps on frequency. So for example, our one store in our Alpharetta area could maybe only do 40 orders an hour versus another store which could do 50 to 60 orders an hour. So having that data up front really helped us measure and track it. And then when we actually, got those, we actually had real-time measurement. So we built a kind of an internal reporting tool where we can look at our own sales against that prepaid program, against our non-variable or control, which was our stores that didn't offer that in the same market. So we were able to see instantly, that increase on the average order, the increase of product offering. We also saw the average ticket go up. So everything was really easily to benchmark because we had a control. And so it's particularly when you guys are testing and learning, you have to have a control. You have to know what are you benchmarking out, because if not, you're never going to learn if this is a good success or if this was a failure. So it's super important to always have that in place. And one thing that we saw, especially when we were tracking and measuring, was our customer experiences. So for example, with our in-store survey, we obviously have the same similar experience on our other stores. So we wanted to keep the questions very similar, but we wanted to dive in a little bit deeper with some of those, like, the in-store wait, for example. That's going to be a lot different than, your reserved kind of pickup experience where you're going through the line and having more time. So we really try to keep it close to our existing, but just change it into what was relevant instead of going out and asking a completely different question set. So I definitely think it's very important when you're tracking and measuring to have a control against it.
I think it's great that you've got those real-time insights and able to shift around that. And in your particular case, and other restaurants and retail industry, I think that those data in real time and being able to respond to that's really important. And for instance, you mentioned capacity for pickup, and we do work with Chick-fil-A, and I know like that's something that when they did their mobile app and that really took off, like that changed how they think about store operations. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that across retail, where people are wanting to do that prepay and have more of that no touch experience, which means you got to quickly be thinking about the capacity changing, maybe from in restaurant dining to the capacity changing around where's the space for picking up orders, and how do you make that as intentional and appealing as you might have prior created that experience for coming in store. So I think that's something that retail and hospitality in particular would be thinking a lot about. So as we move to the next question, one thing that when we have the opportunity to talk and hear from companies is this always serves a little bit of therapy as well for our listeners to hear that, well, everybody, are doing a lot of things right. This is a journey for everyone. And so nobody's got this pinned down perfectly yet. So I'll ask you to share, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that you're still working toward getting to where you want them to be?
Oh, yes. So obviously every industry and every single, business has their own unique challenges. With one of ours, we have quite a few. I mean, as I mentioned, people think of us very seasonally. They think of us as your holiday ham provider. And so we're always looking at new ways to just be more relevant, be part of the conversation with either a younger inspirational audience or new users who are trying different traditions or having, Friendsgiving. So we're always looking at ways to not just go after our core audience, but really start to think about, how does this experience, not just against our core and who's using it, how does it actually work against different audiences, different people in life cycles? What is that kind of sweet spot? And so, for example, when we look through our website experiences, we're always thinking, okay, it has to be this size font, it's got to be these size buttons, this is the look and feel of this kind of tone of our core and audience needs. But what we found is that when we benchmarked and tested it against younger audiences or people who are actually even more familiar with their brand, they wanted a different experiences. So, to your point, even with Chick-fil-A, they have to kind of pivot as their audiences are all, they have the little bit of the older audience, younger and savvier. They have, the business people that come in for lunch. And so how do you build an experience that really solves all of those needs? It's always going to be a challenge. But what we do well at Honey Baked is, we learn a lot and we learn it fast through our, our mistakes. Sometimes we roll things out just to kind of learn it. As we mentioned, don't let perfection be, the downer of success, and challenging, what works best. And so, for example, what we saw one time, we had our website issue, we had an outage and it went down. And this wasn't anything we did internally. It was one of our providers and it impacted other clients. And so it kind of made us think, obviously, what happens now? Particularly with what's going on in the marketplace, the uncertainty around, people, less people in a store, less people in a call center. And we have a really great team that really does well under pressure, because obviously we do have seasonality where we really spike and peak. And we've learned as a company to really come together and support each other. So we're not always, this is a call center issue, or this is a website issue, or this is an in-store issue. We always kind of have that kind of cross-functional team because we can look at things differently. So particularly now we're thinking about, if our call centers go down and we can't quite take, PCI compliant information over phone because we're actually working at home, how do we have like an AI to help us, take orders without any human interaction? These are the discussions that a lot of businesses I think are kind of coming through now, where you kind of get your challenges after either a big, issue or something that can present itself. Then you start thinking, how do we prevent this for the future?
Love that. You guys have a great culture internally, and I hear that a lot as you're coming out in this conversation around talking about how you think about customer experience, and a lot of stuff talking about how you support yourselves, work together internally, translating into how well you support your stores and your customers as well. One question around that, in thinking about how you talked a lot about setting the benchmarks, which is really important, and a lot of companies tend to dive right in without kind of slowing down and doing that. And I think that that's a best practice that we hear across a lot of companies. The previous webinar that we did with Omni Hotels and Resorts, they talked about the same thing around being able to set that and taking some time up front to do some research and understand data and set some of those benchmarks. So that's important of being able to set the benchmark. But then how do you also think about what, the benchmarks help you create your as is goal. How do you define what you want that to be goal to be?
That's a great question, especially for us at Honey Baked. We are all about brand love. Our CMO says it every day. Our teams always live by those values and culture, and that's how we want our customers to perceive us. So at the end of the day, it is about transactions and growing sales and, very kind of sales-driven environment. But we also don't want that to be felt to our customers. We don't want to, have an experience where customer feels like they're being sold to or feeling like it's not about them, because we are dealing with, especially with food, it's a very emotional purchase. These are people that come to us and really want perfection in their, their meals, their centerpieces. And so we always look at just the customer experience on both sides. So how are we delivering that to our end user? Are we treating them well? Are we smiling with them? We actually have a great golden rule our HR team uses, and Mandy Muller, our head of customer service care, does as well, is that when she's interviewing people to work with us and have customer-facing experiences, they always make sure that they actually smile 3 times in that interview, because we want to deliver that customer experience not just through scripts over the phone or scripts over the counter. We want it to be felt visually and having that kind of true, genuine experience with our customers. So for example, we've had times where our store associates have stayed open later to actually provide, a meal that somebody got off late and they really needed to come by. They'll call, they'll drive a ham even to that actual person. We stay open late just to help, people get to their meals they want, because we know these meals are very important. And so we always want to make sure that we're holding that customer to the highest level, because it's not just about that one sale. It's about building a relationship and making sure they feel they are part of our ham fam, and we're always delivering that experience. So we look at it sales driven, but it's also very important not to, always alienate that customer, because it's really about that experience and what makes them happy and proud.
Well, I want to be part of the ham fam. Such a great term. I love brand love, but I really love ham fam. So we're thinking somewhat about this as well. Sorry, I've just lost there we go. We mentioned kind of in the beginning around the some of the different channels that you have for commerce and for delivery. How is the company organized around customer experience, and knowing that there are some different goals for those different channels? How do you guys organize around that?
Well, that's a great point, Margaret. So obviously each experience is unique. And so we really want to make sure the customer journey is always mapped out. We always kind of do these kind of play role, content, like if the customer's reading this, what are they feeling? What are they thinking? But customer experience really plays a big role. So for example, with the prepaid pickup program in our kind of our team transformation, we kind of did a role play of I'm the customer, you're the associate, and then we had someone kind of behind timing us and dinging us like, okay, another customer's walked in, what are you going to do now? And like, kind of get that panic phrase frenzy kind of going to kind of understand how the customer could feel and what the associates are going through. So customer experience is something that we think about all the way through our projects. And it's everything from, an email that goes out. It's just the right, image, the right content that we're featuring. How is this going to be perceived? But one thing that we really, really do well is that we utilize a great tool that is customer facing, where customers can fill out comment cards. It also sends emails to our customers to get surveys. We really are survey and focus group first, I would say. And we're always looking at each individual store, marketplace, benchmarking them against each other. We do kind of these webinars in the past where we had top stores, lower stores, where we are against, what we've done in the past, because obviously it's important to really understand the customer. And we always share that data. So it's not in a silo of one person just kicking it around the organization. It's on a leadership chain where they are, both shouting out great and bad, hey, this was a issue that was presented to us on social media. This is how we addressed it. Or, hey, this is a great experience that our call agent, heard and did, or even our stores. And so, we're very much about sharing that. I think that's what you mentioned, Margaret, having that ham fam. We really embrace that culture internally, and we know we make mistakes. We're not perfect all the time, and we know that we want to be honest about that. And so we share those stories as well. And one thing on our standard responses on our social media, we really take the time to not always just write generic stuff. We personalize it to them. We really want to understand their issue, good and bad. So everything about us is really, again, being authentic. And so customer experience at voice, the data behind those insights are always being shared. We talk about it. We do quarterly reviews of it as well. And we also hold our store levels on maintaining certain scores for their stores. So for example, we have a benchmark across the system, and then if stores are below or above it, we kind of dig into why and how. And sometimes it's, labor issues or staffing issues, or sometimes it's, I just don't have enough help in my store, not necessarily a behavior issue. So we always look at every case unique and different. And particularly for our e-commerce, we're not always that last, experience. When we send it over to a shipper or a third party delivery, some of that experiences are really outside of our hand, but the customer doesn't see that. They see it as a one full cycle through. So that's why it's super important to partner with great vendors that really care about the customer as well. So that's been our big hero of us too, is knowing the whole touch points of any journey that we have across delivery, online, in store, ensuring that is seamless and that customer experience is always going to be number one.
That's awesome. I have one quick question for you out of curiosity. You mentioned comment cards and surveys online. What are your, how do those compare in terms of looking across all responses that you get? What's the percentage of them that are actual comment cards filled out versus surveys that are responded to?
We get a lot more comment cards, I would say. We obviously have an incentive on our surveys to kind of do a buy one, get one lunch or a free sandwich. So it's a little biased, I would say. Incentives are good and bad, but our comment card is just an open form that anyone can fill out. There's no incentive attached. So it's a true honest feedback, we would say. And we get a lot more of those because people kind of want to share both good and bad experiences with us. And we have a customer care team that actually sits on those tickets and in store on those tickets. So it is part of their daily looking at and, and weekly and monthly reporting. And so we're always looking at that information. It's not, oh, great, we got it. And then, it's good to go. We will reach out to that customer. We will make it right with them, or we'll share that with, if it needs to be escalated to, a leadership member, if it's something that was really bad. But overall, we actually practice that culture of that make it right. And we do really, really great job of reaching back and ensuring that. And sometimes customers just want to know they're heard and that they have that feedback. So we're regularly, kind of checking in with that customer and ensuring every interaction is being thought of. Obviously, some companies are way larger than ours, but we just found that that is the best way to really keep that relationship going for us.
I like that. There's a reason that those comment cards have been around for a long time.
Exactly.
So as you think about that, and I know how you've impressed upon us how seriously you take that feedback and think about that voice of the customer is just infused throughout your entire culture. What are some things that maybe they've come from comment cards or maybe they're from your roadmap, but what are some of the things that you're thinking about in the next 12 months that you feel actionable around to improve CX?
Yes, so we've done a few kind of journeys in the last year, I would say. So personalization obviously is always gonna be number one. It's kind of that buzzword. It's been the buzzword of the 21st century, but personalization it's just more than, hi Margaret on your webpage. It's really about understanding that their needs and what they're, looking for and the certain content they want to see. So we've done a really, really great job of doing that in our email, as I mentioned, with our social media responses, but we really want to dive deeper in the website experience. And so that is a big, big strategy of ours. Obviously, we reached out to ARC with Margaret and her team, and we're looking at kind of, data strategy and how do we connect that content through a web experience. And then not just the website, but how does it kind of continue on that conversation, either through an email or an SMS? Like, what is that full kind of touch point across those journeys? And so personalization, that data strategy, and then with that comes our tone of voice. So we're always looking at, how we speak to customers. And about 2 years now, I believe, we've actually launched a new rebranding of our brand. And we've updated our logos. We have a better, tone of voice. We really want to understand, how we speak to customers. And so we've kicked off a project, and it actually kind of discovered after the branding when we went through our website and we realized a lot of the content on our sites are very misleading on the tone of voice. So for example, some are in first person, some are in, the we and the what, and some are really disconnected. And that's just because as any organization over the last 20 years, people write in different tones of voice, people have different jargon and grammar, and we really want to, have consistency. And so this is another big project that we're kicking off around, for example, if everyone's familiar with us, we're the honey baked ham company. We sell our, world famous honey baked ham, but in store we speak of it as our bone in half ham or our hero ham potentially. So we have to create our own language across all these touch points, just so that way there's kind of, fusion of that journey. So customers don't get confused. Is this, is that this? And we really started with a website and writing content, and now we're working into like phone scripts and customer, feedback, just how we gather that. So, as I mentioned with Mandy Moeller, our head of customer care earlier, she's done a great job of, when a customer calls our call center, it's like, hello, Mr. Robinson, thank you for calling the Honey Baked Ham Company. It's very formal and stuffy, but having more of that tone where it's more casual, it's more fun. Obviously, if it's they're calling for a bad experience, we don't want to be too insensitive, but it's really creating that journey through it. So I would say personalization, data strategy, and then tone of voice is our top 3 focus to improve.
That's great. And I'm glad that you mentioned the brand relaunch because I was going to mention that. I love it. And I think it really does a great job of a couple of points that you've made here so far around authenticity. I feel like it's very modern, but it's still very authentic to the brand overall. And I also think, as you talk about different audiences and attracting younger audiences, I feel like it's very modern and relevant and feels very hip and cool, but at the same time really respects the history of the company. So I like that. And then you really hit on something that's huge for a lot of companies is around that content and tone of voice. And we work with a lot of our customers around that. And it's a very, some companies are very obvious where they've got a lot of disconnects in their tone of voice and tenses and product naming conventions, but it can also be very subtle, but it's really important. And, so many companies are embracing this idea of, well, we want our language to be more customer friendly or consumer friendly and not necessarily, what's our industry terms, but what are words that, normal people use to describe it. And but I love that you shared how you're thinking through that across all the different touch points, because it doesn't stop with just updating your website copy. It really does have to be something that is threaded through the entire journey and experience. So thank you for sharing that. I want to come back to something that you mentioned prior you touched on around using AI in thinking about ordering, but I know a lot of companies are really thinking about how do we use AI. What's our organizational readiness for it? Does it make sense for us? Really appreciate you sharing a bit more on how you're thinking about AI.
Yeah, so obviously with the uncertainty today is that, shutting down certain, parts of your departments or business areas, how do you continue that customer experience and ensuring business as usual when there's so many, nuances that are going on in our marketplace. And, a few years ago, we actually launched a chat bot, we call it Handbot, and he actually kind of shares FAQ questions around your shipping information, just prep and serving, just kind of your really general information. At the same time, we also updated our site to kind of have a little bit better flow. And what we saw for our holiday season, we actually reduced our calls by a little over 5,000 calls. And so those 5,000 calls are really that same thing that our chatbot can answer. So when you think about it from perspective that, chatbots are so expensive, they're clunky, oh my gosh, there's so much programming, like what we're gonna say, what does it say, what are we gonna do with it? When you kind of look at it from a case study and return on investment, having something that runs in the background for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you can just start small. I think AI, everyone thinks of it as kind of the end goal, that it's going to take over and it's going to do everything. I think AI just need to start small in an organization. So really start to test where are those areas that you can help cut down friction. So as I mentioned, we had a lot of calls about, prep and serving information, and that was clogging up our phone lines. Instead of having, customer resolutions and order placement, we really saw it as an opportunity to kind of cut all of that out and have some type of integration where it can be on site in real time and able to have those conversations for us in our own brand tone. So we were able to custom program it exactly how we wanted to communicate to our customer. And just like every chatbot, I'm sure if you guys have used Delta, they have some of the best, and all these other experiences like Home Depot and even Verizon, these are all kind of becoming the norm now. And before, I think customers were a little afraid to have that experience. But I think a lot of customers, they don't even know they're talking with a chatbot. It's been so seamless. And so obviously you kind of say it up front, I'm just a digital robot, you kind of play the scene, but customers don't really seem to mind. They just want to get to the answer faster. So why not give it to them in that real-time moment? And then from there, as I mentioned, looking into there's a lot of great programs and software out there that do live ordering through a chatbot. So for example, a customer wants to place an order, they can't quite get through on the phone, or they have to make an edit or update or do a return. Is there an AI chatbot that can actually intercept those conversations and be able to finish it? I've heard case studies of a customer calls an agent, they kind of go through the queue, and then that agent passes it over to a chat bot or a hand bot and then completes that order for them. So it can always kind of be like I mentioned, starting small. It doesn't have to be the end all do all, but really figure out what are those frictions in your your customer's journey, and how does a chat bot or even AI do a great thing. So AI is obviously about automation. So anything that's mundane or things that really clog up your team's time, it could be something simple as pulling reports and putting them into spreadsheets. It could be something even more grand around, replying and sending emails or label scheduling. And so really thinking about those kind of mundane things, it frees up your team's time. And now they actually can do something they love. They can do something that's insightful. Because as far as AI kind of gets, machine learning will never replace the thought process of a human. So we still have our creativity, we still have our takeaways and learnings. Like we can actually make sense of certain data. Yes, they can crunch the data and come up with some hypothesis or some forecasting, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be that human interaction. And so let's save that mind share for something that's used our time. So I think, like I mentioned, just figuring out what are those gaps in your organization and helping it out. I mean, AI is not that expensive. They're very quick things that you can do, pretty simple, and deploy it and test it. And if it's not something, you can always fix it or do something different with it. But we've had great success, and we're only going to continue to keep more into the AI and figure out other ways that we can utilize it.
Oh, I knew that it was a helpful answer for a lot of people that are listening. Kind of just don't be scared. Just try it out. Find something small. I think there's a natural evolution from what we were talking about in the last question and answer around this customer friendly tone and consistency. I think that's super important because that, in my opinion, going to become part of that evolution toward AI and natural language processing, which will help that continue to be a friendly experience and a comfortable experience. Because very quickly, as we're going to be going from the AI and handbots into ordering over devices, right? And so, being able to do that, that's got to be a natural kind of experience, and you're going to be using that language that you're already. I think AI kind of forces you to start thinking about what's that natural language and conversational tone, because that's going to be leading into how we're interacting with listening devices over time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot there, and it's important, I think, to get started. We've got two more questions for you, kind of fun, as we start to wrap up here. And first is surprise and delight. And you've shared so many things around brand love and ham fam and culture, amazing things. But I wanted to ask you, what is maybe your favorite thing or a favorite story that you've heard around surprising and delighting your customers?
Oh, I love our ham swag. We have an HBH collection kind of line, and we love giving away so much fun things. So I actually started with our customer care agent. Her name's Kishwa. She actually works closely with our Facebook along with our other social media representative, Rachel, and our marketing team. And they're always looking at ways to just make customers who are big fans their day, brighter. So when you think surprise and delight, as you mentioned, sometimes you think it's just a coupon or free sample, but really making them feel part of our brand love. So it's something simple. So we like a comment, we send a little direct mail to them, we give them an offer, or we give them a swag box, a little care package from Honey Baked. And we recently did this super cute onesie, and it's called Little Ham on the Little Butt, and it's adorable. And we did it for a vendor who was having their first child, and we created a onesie just for them because they were a great partner of us, and it created like a little bit of a buzz where internally our associates wanted to order it, customers were asking about it, and so we love injecting fun into our swag. So we do a lot of giveaways, like we did, for example, we did a really cute campaign last year for Father's Day. We did Tell Us Why Your Dad is a Ham, and it was just kind of a tongue-in-cheeky kind of campaign where we played off of funny dad jokes. For example, we did cute little hats and shirts that said working on my ham bod, and we got a bunch of funny funny stories of people sharing their stories with their dad, and we gave that away. We had number one ham dad, ham daddy, like just the hilarious little cheeky things that people really loved. We did a cute one for Mother's Day. We did a mom's relaxation kit with bath bombs and a ham scented smelling candle of our signature glaze. So we love to just do fun stuff. I mean, it doesn't stop there. We've done hammocks for summer. We've done ham jammas for Christmas. So, it's not always about being a sold to on the products, and, everybody's got to buy ham, but sometimes it's just having fun with the brand and creating those kind of fun moments that really do surprise and delight them. So we've had a lot of fun in that for sure.
Advocates. That's fantastic. So my last question that I always ask when I do an interview is, if you were given $2 million to spend on customer experience, how would you spend it?
I would take all our customers on our cruise and feed them ham. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm in.
Not a good time for that. But no, really, it's kind of funny because when you think about how much spent on customer service, I think a lot of people be like, oh, technology or software or systems. But at the end of the day, are you really going to increase customer experience? You'll learn a lot about it, but what are the takeaways? And so, kind of, I think what Kevin mentioned on the Omni is very similar to my approach. I would do a lot of consumer groups. I would love to do focus and kind of really understand not just our core consumer, but other consumers of different products. And instead of being, behind a pane glass where it's very, sterile, I would really want to have a little bit more further conversations with them where, maybe they're in our stores working along with us and, helping customers and really being part of that journey, just so we can really see it hands-on, that experience. And I think giving them obviously a lion's share incentives and also doing something that really promotes it. I also think with that, we would learn so much more about our customers and how they live their daily lives and what they do, because it's not just about interacting. sometimes we forget our customers are the same customers that shop and all the other big box or retail or, QSR environments. We always lose focus, like this is our honey baked customer and this is exactly what they do. But instead of, they get coffee at Starbucks, or they shop on Amazon, or they buy groceries with Instacart. There's so many things that we just lose sight of, that our customers are shared customers. And so really focusing in on that spend would be about, creating kind of like that, or almost like micro ham fam in our community, and really getting like a community forum, really hearing what they say, whether their struggles and friction. I had a really great panel with a gentleman that worked at Dollar General. And particularly during this time, I would love to share, but he actually mentioned, during the recession, and they actually had a huge influx, and that was a big game changer for Dollar General. They made so much money in such a short amount of time just because of the uncertainty in the market at that time. And what he realized is that when he was talking with his customers and really understanding their needs, it was really around, this is such a, unprivileged part of our country, and they really get kind of the worst end of the deal. So you think about the loan sharks, that you get 400% back on your payment cards. They saw these concerns. And so Dollar General has kind of been thinking about, how do we actually help our communities? What if we allowed them to cash their checks with us and we didn't have to take any percent off their payment? Or what if we actually started a food program for them, where they can actually pay a little at a time and get their groceries for the month? And it really, just speaking with the customer really opened up his mind, that it's not just an end goal of selling them shampoo or cleaning products. It's really, how do they, live their lives? And that was really awe-inspiring for me. And it really makes me really think a lot about the marketing that we do, and how we touch our community and who do we interact with, because it really isn't just about that in-store environment. Once you're out the door, we hope you come back and we never hear or think of you again. We really have to be mindful, especially as a local, company, that, these are our community, these are our neighbors, these are people we work alongside with. So I think the 2 million could be spent on a lot of great things to learn so much from, and really understand the root of what our customers are going through.
That's some great sharing around how they're doing that and thinking about it, and those concepts around that ethnographic research is really important. And I think how we get to ultimate success is where we are truly understanding what our customers need, and then revenue goals are. But if we're meeting them where their needs are, then it's going to be a successful experience for everyone. Well, thank you so much for all of that sharing. I'm going to just give our audience a minute or two here to send in any questions that they might have. And while they're doing that, I'm going to just recap a couple of things from your answers that stood out to me. And going back to the beginning, kind of talking about how customers now are doing, how you're using data around identifying that they want to do more prepay and pick up in store. And as I think about CX, and we throw that term around in customer experience, I think what we're going to see more and more is, CX can mean convenience experience. It can be control experience. All of those things, rolling up into ultimate customer experience. And the more that, the things that you're doing and other brands are thinking about what they can do, giving that convenience and control is just going to overall create a better CX. When you were talking about the benchmarks and creating a scorecard, I think, that is really important reminders for companies that you can operationalize around that. And it gives you, you can't really be successful with test and learn until you understand what those benchmarks are and what you're testing against and what those scorecards look like. It's a favorite quote for me personally, and for the team at ARC as well, around what you shared about, like, I'm going to rephrase a little bit, but don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. And kind of heard that actually a couple of times coming out in your answers. And I think that's what creates an agile environment, and for you guys to be so successful in your culture is around that. Like, let's take the fear out of it that it has to be perfect, and instead, let's try things. Let's be fearless. Think about it like that. You're sharing around data strategy. That was another great takeaway in reminder of having that having the data strategy to drive how you understand across all the channels, web and email and SMS and all your communications, and then thinking through that consistent tone of voice across all of it. Thinking about AI and starting small, that was a great myth buster for, I think a lot of people, AI is still kind of, well, what really is that and how do we really do that? So thank you for breaking that down and reminding that just find a small pocket of something to cut down on the friction and give it a go and learn from it. And then finally, remembering, even though we talk about digital and all of these kinds of things around data, at the end of the day, our customers are people, and the more that we understand them and understand all of the experiences that they have, that ultimately that understanding is what should be driving designing how we can best serve them as customers. So thank you again for sharing all of that. I'm going to take a look here and see if we have any questions coming through on our chat. We'll give it just one more minute. Not seeing any come through right now. We can do a send out to all the attendees. If you have any questions, we'll go ahead and stop the recording now. And Ash, again, thank you so much for your time and for sharing today. We really appreciate all of the insights and look forward to hopefully doing another one of these in the future. Thanks, everyone.